Why should you be counted in the 2020 census? Plenty of reasons. Census numbers ensure fair representation. They are used to determine congressional district lines, as well as shape districts for state and county governments, school boards, and other legislative bodies. The census directly impacts presidential elections, as the number of congressional seats a state has determines the number of electoral votes it receives. Census data determines how much annual federal funding the city of South Fulton receives for health care, roads, public safety, arts and culture, and other services. Developers also use it to determine where to build new homes or open new businesses, which generate tax revenue and jobs. It's real easy. You receive a census packet in the mail, including your online personal code and a website address. Simply enter the code and you're ready to enter your information. You also can participate by phone through the number included in your packet or by mail through the enclosed form. You can complete the census form in a matter of minutes. There are only 9 quick questions for each person in your household. For most of them, you only need to check a box. It's that simple. It's about as secure as it gets. The U.S. Census Bureau is legally bound to keep all data confidential. Your answers will not be shared with anyone or any government agency. Individual information won't even be available. As you can see, participating in the census is valuable, easy, and secure. Still have questions? Check out these websites for more information. Do your part for the city of South Fulton. Stand up and be counted.
Virtual Town Hall is a chance to have a meaningful conversation about the census and neighborhood organizations are often trusted voices within a community, and they certainly are with us. And since its inception, the city of South Fulton has been a leader in that vein. For a while now, the leadership and community groups have worked hand in hand towards attaining an accurate census count, and that continues tonight. There is so much at stake, such as national apportionment and accurate population numbers, the federal money for services that people use. It's more important than ever to have these conversations. So we will hear from several panelists tonight with crucial information about the census. So we're glad you're joining us. We also want to hear from you, especially with your questions. Please ask your questions in the chat areas in the Zoom and on social media. You can go into the comment areas and they'll get the questions to us. If you have a specific question for a specific panelist, just indicate who your question is directed to, and or otherwise we will just do our best to direct the question. So let's begin. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce the City of South Fulton Mayor, William Bill Edwards, who will discuss how the census works, Mayor, for all of us. Good evening, Mayor Edwards.
Good evening, Donna. Glad that you're the moderator of this event. Long time South Fulton constituent. We here at South Fulton love you. I want to also thank my 2 co-chairs, Councilwoman Helen Willis and Councilwoman Carmelita Gums, who have worked so diligently beside me and others to make sure that South Fulton counts. That's important. So today we really want to engage each of our constituents in this whole effort of making South Fulton count. The census, I know people talk about it all the time, and Some of us take it lightly. They really don't know what it is and what are the benefits that we gain from it. There are a lot of benefits to be gained, and one that you mentioned was congressional reapportionment. That's important. We lose and gain seats in Congress, a lot of times based on the census and their ability to redistrict certain areas. And I'm sure that you heard this old phrase about genocide. That's where it happens because we don't take value of what we need to be doing. It is in this era of pandemic issues, it's important that those things are important, but even as much as important is the fact that we get counted. Our goal for this year that we set has been 80%. And we feel that if we get 80% of our people, see, each one of you represent $1, each one of you. And the more of you that do the census, the more dollars that come to us. We always talk about service delivery and the things that we have to do as a city. We cannot always do all of that just based on your tax dollars. There's other funds that come in that help us along. And the census is just one of those things. We talk about roads, transportation, schools. I'm glad to see Kimberly Dove is with us today. And schools. These are all affected by the fact that if you could just get online or send in your application for the census, get on telephone. It's a very simple process, and we could gain many dollars off of adhering to that process. I have been excited about it. I am right now, we're at a level of 57%. I would have loved to be much higher at this time, and I'm sure that Councilwoman Willis and Councilwoman Gunn would agree with me that we would love to be higher. But when you look at us as it pertains to Atlanta, the nation, and also Fulton County, we're right in the mix as it pertains to the percentage of people who are actually getting involved with the census. So even though I'm pretty glad about that, I don't want to really be in the mix. I want to be higher than the mix. So we need to solicit you to come on in and join us in this effort to get this census done. It's a lot of hard work. We've been out to parking lots dancing and giving out gifts and T-shirts and, just getting people to understand you got to do it. Even on our feedings that we do in the cities on Fridays, we continue to push the effort of South Fulton being counted. And so it's very, very important. And we're going to continue. We're going to ramp up even higher in these last few months to get that 80% mark. If we hit that 80% mark, we're doing a great deal, not only for this city, but we're doing a great deal for you in terms of helping us to deliver those services that you need. So I'm very pleased to join with these two councilwomen who have been doing an outstanding job. And let's go get 80. Let's go get this 80% and let's make a difference in South Fulton.
All right, Mayor Edwards, you gave us the charge. We're at 57 and we need to get to 80. Right. So we're gonna work on that, and we're gonna talk about the kinds of things that'll help us get to that tonight. Next, let's look at how the census data informs federal funding in particular. For that, I am pleased to welcome the City of South Fulton's District 3 Councilwoman, Helen Willis. Good evening, Ms. Willis.
Good evening, everyone. How are you all today?
Good. We're all good. We're ready for you.
Yeah, great.
Well, one of the things I like to, bring it to reality, and I go back to when we decided to fight for cityhood, when we fought for cityhood, everything was based on a number, and that number was the census number. We had to have a feasibility study, and that feasibility study was used to determine whether or not we had financial viability to become a city. But what was disturbing about this feasibility study, it was all based on what the census data said. It was all based on the population from the census. And that population said that we were of 88,000 residents. And so what was disturbing to me is that we all knew South Fulton had more than 88,000 residents, but that's what was counted. And so everything was based on that number that was solidified by the last census in 2007. Was it 2007, Mr. Holland? Wasn't it 2007? Was the last time we did the census? It was 10 years ago. 2010, I'm sorry, 2010 census. Everything was based on that 2010 census. And so our local option sales tax was based on that 2010 census. You know, our lunch programming, our medical resources, everything was based on that 2010 census. We have 100,000 people in our city, but we're only being counted at 88,000. Then we're going to be severely underfunded, because the funding is going to be based on a population that that was not fully counted. And so that's why it's very important. And we all are pushing this, because the census, I mean, our medical services are informed by the census. Our school lunch program is informed by the census. Our DDOT projects, our construction projects, all of that stuff is informed by the census. And if we have 100,000 residents in our city, but we're only counted at 88,000, then we have to figure out how to come up with that additional funding. And so it's important that we go out, you know, we remind our residents to make sure that they fill out the information online, call it in, or either mail it in. I know I'm doing my part. Every time I have a function, every time I have a food distribution, every time I go into the apartment complexes, I make sure I remind people to respond to the census. One of our hardest undercount categories are children. And so I'm glad Kimberly Dove is on here. She can talk about that, but I am going to wrap it up because we do have a time limit. But that's how I relate it. You know, in 2010, we were counted as 88,000 as a population. Our local option sales tax was based on that. Our feasibility as a city was based on that. And everybody knew, based on other data sources, that we had over 100,000 residents in this area. And so as a result of that, we in the city of South Fulton are severely underfunded for services, because we were only counted at 88,000 residents. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And, you know, it's important for us to know those numbers, because we need to spread them around to everyone. And as you said, talk to everybody we know and make sure that they have sent in their census ballots. So we're going to keep on going with that. Thank you, Councilwoman Willis, for that important information. Let's learn about the importance of the census in terms of representation, especially when it comes to determining something that I'm involved with every day down at the state capitol, congressional and state legislative districts. And so joining the conversation now with the city is the South Fulton's District 2 Councilwoman, Carmelita Gumbs. And so welcome, Councilwoman Gumbs, and tell us a little bit about the importance of that representation.
Good evening, and I am definitely excited to share exactly how that representation comes into play. So the process for determining the number of representatives each state receives in the U.S. House of Representatives is called apportionment, and it's based on the population recorded in the decennial census as required by the Constitution. In 2010, Georgia's apportionment population was a little over 9 million, which entitled the state to 14 representatives. That was an increase of 1 representative since the 2000 census. As we know, we live in a very fast-growing state. It's important for us to participate to ensure that we are adequately represented. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among several states, which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such a manner as they shall be by direct law. As prescribed by the Constitution, the first decennial census was conducted in 1790. Thomas Jefferson, the current Secretary of State at that time, directed the enumeration. Since then, the census has been taken in each year ending in the 0 digit. Thus, the 2020 census is the second census of the 21st century. I bet many people didn't even know that. The apportionment calculation is based upon the total resident populations, citizens and non-citizens of the 50 states. In this year's 2020 census, the apportionment population also includes the U.S. Armed Forces, personnel, and federal civilian employees stationed outside of the United States and their dependents living with them that can be allocated back to their home state. The Constitution provides that each state will have a minimum of one member in the U.S. House of Representatives, and then the apportionment calculation divides the remaining 385 seats among the 50 states. Congress decides the method used to calculate the apportionment. If you want to make a change, be the change you want to see, and complete your 2020 census so you have the appropriate congressional seats representing you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just found out that there's even more incentive for people sending in their census, that the city of South Fulton has a sweepstakes that involves being able to win an Amazon Echo, a Fire Stick or a combo, some Apple AirPods, those kind of things. So all you have to do is first complete the census, visit 2020census.gov, but then we need you to prove that you went ahead and did that. So send a screenshot of your census completion code to info@cityofsouthfultonga.gov, and you'll be in a sweepstakes to possibly win something. I'll mention that a little bit later for those of you who may have missed that, but at least that's an incentive. If not, it should be incentive enough to do it just because it's going to make our community better. But if we can give them a little bit more, we'll do that. So thank you very much, Ms. Gumbs. Now we will get the chance to get the perspective of the 2020 census in a way to highlight and boost participation from Fran Calhoun, who is the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for Fulton County. Welcome, Ms. Calhoun.
Hi, Donna. So good to see you as always. And I want to just say good evening to everyone. Thank you to this awesome team, these leaders, Mayor Edwards, Councilwoman Willis and Gumbs, and just thank you for your leadership. We have so enjoyed working with your team and hosted your fire station a few weeks ago for our fire station challenge. So we've been having some fun while we do the census. Also, it takes a village. So I'm so glad to see everybody here. Now, I do have a PowerPoint that I want to just share with you. It'll hopefully keep me on message and on time also. And so I'm going to share my screen quickly here. Let's see here. See if I can get that up. And just, I always like to start with a query because we've heard a lot of good information. And our mayor has said that we have a lot of people talking about the census. And so that makes me happy. We've got to get more people talking about the census, because in 2010, Black Americans were the highest net undercounted group in the country. We have from the low end, an estimate of 800,000 to 3 million who went missing during the census. And here in Georgia, we are hearing that we may miss nearly 70,000 men. We missed over 1 million children nationwide. And I won't go into that. I understand someone else is here to talk about that. So briefly, I want to share with you, kind of starting with our baseline of 2010, where you can see that roughly 25% of the county was missing, and we had to go hunt for them. That meant that governmental dollars, tax-paying dollars had to be spent both locally and on the federal level to go door knocking, to host events, many of which like we're doing this year, to see if we can get folk to participate. So this was our baseline starting point. We knew we did not want to repeat those numbers, and I'll show you why in just a moment. We've got about 154 hard to count census tracts. That's what you see in bullet 2, those 350,000 people, roughly 130,000 households. They live in areas where we've got to go and make sure we don't leave those good people behind this time around. That resulted in about $600 million that the county did not get to provide human services in Fulton County to our 1 million residents. So what we did end up seeing, we finally tipped out at 23 billion in 2016. This is representative of 55 federal spending programs. These are kind of the big dollars. There are about 325, but these are the top 55 federal programs for which our census data is utilized to drive those dollars home. And so we got that despite an annual loss of $300 million. So that's $3 billion we left on the table in Fulton County since 2010. That's a lot of money for a lot of Medicaid, for a lot of school lunch. And I was so happy to hear Councilwoman Willis talk about how those numbers impact us. That's your messaging right there, all the way through City of South Fulton. And so, you know, again, what's at stake? Billions of dollars. So we're talking about annually $1 trillion approximately that we've had estimates up to 1.5 trillion that come to our communities. Those numbers follow the data. They don't follow any need that we might have, that we might share as we go and protest, as we write letters, as we send pictures. You know, the data drives the funding back home. And so that's why it's so important for our members to our community members to participate. We are estimating that we will lose up to $5 billion over the next 10 years if our residents don't come out. You'll note that we are estimating that, and this is Georgia has estimated this along with George Washington University. They have a center there. It says Georgia will lose approximately $2,300 per person. So that means that we're hoping that we gain $2,300 for every person that you all are going out there getting. I wanted to just list those top funded programs. This data is taken also from a George Washington study that looks at how census data came to Georgia. You'll notice some very specific and similar things about these. Now, I did remove one of the top 12, and that was simply one that is 1.3 billion for transportation highway funding. But what you'll notice here is that all of these are human services, and I picked this out because the county, of course, provides human services, and you'll see education in there also. These are quality of life dollars. These dollars make the difference in how people thrive every day and long term. And so when we talk about how consequential the census is, you can see just by these numbers alone that the census is indeed important to how well we live in this country and how we're able to progress and have opportunities. So I wanted to just include this. I didn't want to go into it much, but what you'll see is everything from a child to a senior to a baby. All of our lives depend on these numbers, this work that you all are out here doing right now. And it just simply says that if we all respond, we all benefit, our whole households. Don't leave anybody uncounted. Babies, everybody who was born before April 1 gets counted in the census. And so I won't go through this. These are some of the things that you know that we've been doing because you've been working with us. But we've had to go from in-person to virtual, of course. And of course, you know, we can talk a little bit more about later about some of these kind of low budget things that will still allow us to work within the community. These are just some ways that our community members can help. Again, low budget ways, things that you're already doing. I think I heard the mayor saying, and maybe one of the council members, that you're going to where folk are coming right now. And we know that those are to food distribution centers. It's so important that we meet people where they are and share with them that the very reasons why they are there are the very reasons why we want to be of help and support in our community. So I will leave it there and be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, thank you so much. Important information. And the thing about it is, you know, with what we're dealing with COVID-19, we certainly understand that it is more difficult to reach out to people. So the creative ideas that you all are coming up with is just great, including that Sweepstakes, and I'll tell you about it and some more in a few minutes, because there's a drawing once a week. So there's more opportunities to win. So thank you, Ms. Calhoun, as always. You're a wonderful resource. Another area of importance including the hard to count areas like us, the underrepresented populations. And so now we'll find out why the city of South Fulton is considered a hard to count area and highlight the populations that are underrepresented in the census count. So Black women and children, ages under 5, children under 5. And for that, we welcome Regional Census Partnership Specialist, Floyd Holland. Good evening, Mr. Holland.
Good evening, and thank you all for having me. This is very important, and I'm so grateful that you all are having this meeting. It's important for me here as part of the census, but also as a resident of South Fulton. This is very important information, and I am so grateful to be a part of. I wanted to point out a couple of things, and some people kind of said it earlier. Right now, the city of South Fulton is at 57.1%. And our goal is, of course, to get at least to 80. So we definitely have some work to do. I wanted to kind of put that in perspective for you guys so we can kind of see exactly where we are. When we look at surrounding cities near us, we have Union City at 48%, City of East Point at 47%, the City of Atlanta at 53%. But also in the city, in the county of Fulton County, we have cities such as Alpharetta at 68%, Roswell at 69%, and Johns Creek at 73%. And there is no reason why we can't be just as high, if higher than all of the other cities in the county, in Fulton County. So there are two populations that I kind of want to be specific about on this meeting, and that is the African American population as well as those children under 5. As far as the African American population, it's a hard to count population. And one of the reasons is really just that educational piece. We see all the messaging, we see the commercials, we see all that out there, but there's the piece that we often miss in the African American community is just exactly what is the census. So many times we see it, we see the messaging, but we just don't know what it is and how it benefits us. So it's so important that we get that messaging out there, just exactly what it is. The census is how we allocate over $600 billion over the next 10 years. It is how hospitals, Head Start programs, special education programs, highways, all of these things that we need in our city, it's how all that money and all that funding comes to them. So I believe when you make it relatable to people, people understand the severity of the census and are more willing to take and fill out the census. The next group of people are those children under 5. So often we miscount those children because we feel like they should be counted. If you were born on April 1st, of 2020, then you are to be counted in the census. So the goal is to count everyone. I don't care if they're 1 month old or if they're 10 years old. It is important to count everyone. When you think about it, the census only comes every 10 years. When that child is 3 months old, in 10 years, they'll be sitting in a 5th grade classroom. So that funding those school lunches, that classroom that's overcrowded could possibly be because we didn't count that child. So it's very important that we count everyone. The next piece, if by chance you don't know where your mailer is, it is quite okay. All you have to do is go to my2020census.gov and you too can fill out your census. It takes less than 10 minutes to fill out your census. Just put your information in. The other part of why sometimes those two communities are hard to count is because we don't like to give up our information. The census only has a few questions. It takes less than 10 minutes. You probably have more information on your Facebook page than you will put on your census. So it is vitally important to get all of these resources here in the wonderful city of South Fulton where I reside. And I would love to answer any questions that you may have. Feel free to reach out to me. If there are any events that are going on in the city of South Fulton that you would like for a census representative to be a part of, we are more than happy to come and be a part of. You can email me at floyd.a.holland@2020census.gov.
I think what you're saying, Mr. Holland, is no excuses. You can find it somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. We're not going to give you a reason to have an excuse. Say, I didn't know where to get it. I didn't get mine. I lost it. The dog ate it, whatever. We're going to find it.
And if I could just throw in on this closing note, there are 3 ways that you can fill it out. There is no excuse. Thank you for pointing that out. You can fill it out by mail, you can fill it out by phone, or you can do it online. So there is no excuse not to be counted. And remember that the money follows the count and not the need.
Okay. And it really is true. The questions aren't difficult. They're not too intrusive at all. They're just basic, basic facts about your family. So that's really good. I want to thank you so much. I want to mention again the sweepstakes that South Fulton has right now. Once a week, this sweepstakes, one winner is selected weekly. It runs through August 18th, from June 22nd to August 18th, so that we can get to this 80. Enter for a chance to win an Amazon Echo and Fire Stick combo, or some Apple AirPods, which I've decided I cannot live without these days. It was a birthday gift, so they're important. They're nice, really nice gifts. And that is just because you go and complete the census, as has been mentioned, 2020census.gov. You can find the census and fill it out. And then to prove that you did it, send a screenshot of your census completion code to info@cityofsouthfultonga.gov. info@cityofsouthfultonga.gov. And I'll give you some more information about that later. Next, we want to learn how the census funding impacts small businesses, which is very important. And they've struggled, we know, a lot with COVID-19. It determines economic development within a city. And with that, we welcome the president and CEO of the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, Diane Matthews. Welcome, Ms. Matthews.
Meet yourself, Diane.
Are you
Always
there?
forget to hit unmute.
Okay.
It's great to see you, Donna. It's great to see all of you, Mayor Edwards and my Councilwoman Willis and Councilwoman Gums and everybody that's here. Kimberly Dove, thank you so much for the opportunity. I just wanted to let you know that we've been pushing at the Chamber, really getting our members to understand the importance of completing that census and getting it back in. It is of utmost importance because right now, our small and minority-owned businesses are truly struggling. They were struggling before COVID-19, and so you can imagine the struggle right now. The census, as everyone has already stated, really that equals dollars for our communities. And I was just listening, I think it was Fran Calhoun that was mentioning how much money was left on the table because South Fulton, well, Fulton County period, but South Fulton in particular was undercounted. And I was just thinking about it and I'm like, yeah, we're now at 100,000 for the city of South Fulton. But honestly, before all the annexations, we were much more than that. I don't know how much more. I know Mayor Edwards knows, but my guess is it's well above that number. So it's even more than that, Fran, that was left on the table. And so that is why it is so needed right now. According to the latest Census Bureau survey that I reviewed, it said that over 50% of small businesses experience a substantial negative impact from the pandemic. And over 30% believe it will take them more than 6 months for their operations to return to normal. In speaking one-on-one to our members, our chamber members, which is a hodgepodge from small business, medium, large, nonprofits, you name it, mom and pop shops and those that are working from home, I think it's greater than that. I really do. And it's going to take them longer than that because they are really, really hurting. The Census Bureau released the key findings from 22,449 businesses who had responded to the survey between April and May. And for the businesses within the hotel and food sector, 83.5% indicated that they had experienced a negative impact due to the pandemic. We talk, or I do, I speak with some of our hotels. We have one in the city and several throughout South Fulton County. They're really desperate right now. They truly are. And they're trying everything that they can do now that they're reopening slowly to social distance and what have you, because it's a horrible situation to see not just the hotels that are suffering, but the employees that are suffering. Half of them don't have a job anymore. So this is really impacting not just that hotel and their employees, but also these are our citizens that live in our city that are suffering like this. And so you've got to know that down the road it's only going to get worse if we don't get that census form filled out and get it turned in. We really cannot afford the luxury of ignoring it anymore. The one thing that I noted that the Census Bureau had just stated that an average of 72% of businesses in the educational sector and 62% in the healthcare and social services sector and 70% in the arts and entertainment and recreation sector temporarily closed a location for a minimum of 1 day. The majority, it was more than that, but for a minimum of 1 day. And while the data collected by the survey is troubling, it's not really surprising since so many small and minority-owned businesses are already in the struggle, struggling, trying to hold on, trying not to close, trying not to go bankrupt. It's a dire situation. And so the stay-at-home orders were necessary, and I totally agreed with them. But having the shuttered doors basically negatively impacted, once again, the commercial activities of so many non-essential businesses right here as well as across the country. And even for the businesses that remain open, either full-time or on a limited basis, they're still catering to a consumer base that consists of millions of out-of-work individuals. So in essence, more than, we know, 36 million new unemployment claims that have been filed over the past 3 months, with the US Treasury Secretary warning that unemployment levels could reach over 25% or close to the levels that were witnessed during the Great Depression. So that's a dire, unfortunately, dire circumstance that that we have to understand, but we're using that data and communicating with local businesses here to understand that it's just not you that we need to fill that out. Please encourage your family members, your neighbors, your friends. I mean, this is our situation. This is our reality right now. And so this is what we all have to get behind and push over and over again. And some of you that are on here, I know you've already been doing it. I'm friends with most of you on Facebook, and I see what you're doing all of the time. And so now you have me doing it too, but we all have to do it. So I'm telling people all the time, if you haven't completed and submitted your Census 2020 form, you need to do it right now because our community and our small businesses are counting on you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Those numbers are dire. They're troubling. And it would be a shame if on top of what they're already experiencing, that we don't get the money that we deserve coming into the city of South Fulton if people don't fill out the census. So we need those census numbers to improve the situation that is already dire for our area. And so it's also good for us to know that, because we as friends and neighbors, people who live in the community, need to know what's going on with those businesses. So thank you, Ms. Matthews, for telling us that information. Absolutely. And we will all start working to make sure that we get people to fill out those census forms so we get to 80. Before we go, another important area, and before I should say we open it up to any audience questions, because if you have those, go ahead and let us know either through this Zoom or on your social media pages, ask your questions. But another important area, and an area I've covered for years, is education. The census impacts education in big ways. And for that, I am pleased to turn to our District 6 representative on the Fulton County School Board, Ms. Kimberly Dove. Hi, Ms. Dove, how are you?
I am excellent. Terrific Tuesday, everyone. And thank you for inviting me on such an important topic. One thing that Census does as it impacts the schools is that it impacts not only our students, but it impacts our educators and our staffing levels. As you know, the census data is used to predict the amount of resources our students receive for education. That does include our exceptional children, which you may know as our special needs children, our low income families, reducing the class sizes, hiring specialists that will help us in our communities, such as therapists and things of that nature, teacher quality, and preschool to our low income families, and especially nutrition. Many of us have talked about that and spoken about that. But filling out the census makes sure that we count for every student who needs to be fed. For example, during the pandemic, we, Fulton County Schools, fed over 50,000 meals to our students. And this was every student, regardless of their income level and if they were citizens of the county in South Fulton. Fulton County Schools has nearly 90 schools and over 94,000 students. In South Fulton County, we have over 35 elementary, middle, high school schools, as well as charters that are located in South Fulton County. And when I say that, I am mentioning my home city, South Fulton, College Park, East Point, Union City, Fairburn, and Chattahoochee Hills for over 20,000 students. Our current class size range and vary from 25 to 33 students. We use the dollars for federal funding for technology, not only for our students, but for our educators. We have a lot of educators who may need extra support in doing online training and teaching, and we're working towards that as well. That they also provide hotspots and devices. Many of you did not mention, but we also support career technical agricultural education. And as you know, we have a college and career academy on Flat Shoals Road that specializes in teaching aviation, construction, culinary arts, film, and audio pathways. Those students are certified through through funding that's also provided by federal fund dollars. We look at safety and security. And you mentioned preschool. Guys, let's face it. Kindergarten is not what it used to be. When these kids leave kindergarten today, they have to be well equipped. They have to know all their alphabets. They have to be able to count to 25. They have to know all of their shapes. They need to be able to read. So there is not a lot of playtime. So preschool is very important. So that age group, when I'm walking around a park and I see a family and it's a baby in a crib and I ask them, did you fill out the census? And she said, yes. I'm like, but did you count this one? And I'm pointing at the kid in the stroller. That is who I need you to count. That is the child who's going to need our services and our support so we can make sure they have a quality education. Fulton County Schools right now is in the process of finalizing our budget, which with community input, we have federal funding dollars that are about $700,000. We also will receive IDA funding, Part B, that is for the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. That is a very small part, but it is a part. So if we continue to count through the census, we will make sure that all of our children through ages 3 to 21 years of age receive special education and all of those services related to it, whether it's special treatment on a bus or, additional staffing. We need to make sure that happens. And we also are receiving Elementary and Secondary Education Act funds, which is ESSA, which is Title I, which most of you may know. And as the COVID is happening and they're in legislative session, Ms. Lowry, you just mentioned, right? We're talking about a 14% reduction of local state funding as well as local funding. Nutrition, again, Fulton County Schools use the census data to help us to track, guys, this breakfast and lunch meals that we provide for our students. We also are continuing to provide summer meals for our students for breakfast and lunch throughout the summer. So this does not stop. This is not just a school time activity. We do this also throughout the summer. And Fulton County Schools continuously actively support the census counts by using our website as well as providing them on our school devices. You know, school's out, so they return those devices back in. So we continue to make sure we do that. One of the things I will ask is if we could do is maybe when students are picking up those summer meals, we maybe put something in there as a reminder. I will ask and see if that's something we could do. And as we were talking about how we could help. And then finally, just make sure that you understand that our Fulton County Board is made up of 7 members. There are 2.5 members that are located in the South Fulton County representing you. So that census count will help you also potentially get another board member to help represent your interests. And that's all I have, but it is very important to make sure that you fill out the census. Is not only important for your students, the ones that are born as of April 1, as well. April 1, not April 1. If they were here, they have a birth certificate, they are to be counted. Thank you guys so very much for having me, and I'll be around for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dove. Thank you so much for mentioning what's going on down at the Capitol, which is dealing with the budget. And we know that the state has suffered massive revenue losses during COVID-19, and so there will be major cuts. They're going to be painful, and I know that many of them will come in the K-12 education. So we need those census dollars to help us, to help South Fulton weather this really, really difficult time. So now we have a few questions from our audience for some of our panelists, and there's one right now for Mr. Holland. Mr. Holland, what things are in place to make the census secure? I think a lot of people really worry about what they're actually saying and on that census that people might find out about, and there'll be identity theft, different things. Talk about that a little bit.
So the census is very secure. Of course, when anytime you are dealing with something over the internet, there's something that could happen, but I can say that it has been tested over and over again, and your information is very safe with the census. It has been encrypted, it's very safe. Also, you aren't sharing vital information that you wouldn't share. As I said earlier, you have more information on Facebook than you would provide to the U.S. Census. So you can feel secure with submitting your information with the census.
All right. Thank you very much. To follow up on that, someone is asking, do I just count my family? Should I include everyone in the household? What do you say? Everybody, right?
Everybody.
If they are born on April 1st, then you count everyone in your household, be it they a family member. If they are living with you in your household, then you count them.
Yeah. The other question, and this came up, of course, probably more than a year ago with the president, and that deals with the citizenship question. And so somebody is asking, is there a citizenship question on the 2020 census?
No.
All right. They're not going to ask you whether or not you were born in the U.S. And I think that's important for people who are worried about being immigrants, or that ICE is going to come after them or something like that. So there is not a census question.
There's not a citizenship question, and I understand the concern, of course, but the thing that we should definitely realize is that the census is really to gather data. It's not so, and we do not share information with law enforcement, and we really just want to gather that data. So as I believe it was Councilwoman Willis spoke earlier, we can get those funds to where they need to be. When we share the data from the census, we're not sharing information such as your name and who you are. We really just want the numbers so that we can see where people are, so that we can allocate those resources accordingly.
Yeah. So there is another question. Someone said they got something in the mail, says it's from the census. How do you know that it's legit?
Very important question. The census website, my2020census.gov, is where to direct you. We will never see anything asking for your social security numbers, anything really using sense where, like, if it sounds like it may be kind of iffy, it possibly is. The thing that we are going to send are those identifiers. So it'll come to say from the 2020 census, and it'll have a code that you go in when you go to my2020census.gov to enter in, so your household can pop up. If by chance you don't have it, or if you don't even feel secure using it, you can always just go to my2020census.gov and put in your address without using it.
Okay. Another question, do you have to answer every single question? Can you refuse to answer a question?
I highly recommend answering the questions. If not, will be filled in, and you want your data to be accurate, or they can be followed up with you. So it also goes back to, do you want someone coming to knock at your door to get the answer, or do you want someone answering that question for you, or do you want to put in your accurate information? So if you want your information to be accurate so those funds can be allocated correctly, you want to make sure you fill out all the questions.
All right. And then when will that door knocking campaign begin? When can we expect people to start showing up if you haven't filled out your census?
With COVID-19, I do not want to give you a correct date, just because with so many things going on right now, I don't want to quote a date and that date not happen. But with so many ways to fill out your census, why wait until someone knocks at your door? You can go ahead and fill it out now via phone, via computer, or just simply mail and get in. It's no need to wait. Let's go ahead and get that count up now, so that we don't have to use those resources of someone going out to knock on doors.
All right. Before we wrap up, I wanted to give each one of our panelists a chance to maybe just do a round robin. Each one of you do your final pitch to get people to go ahead and turn in their census forms. Let's start with you, Mayor. What do you say to those who are still on the fence on this?
Count yourself. Do the census. I think we have covered everything with these panelists. I can't understand why anyone would have an excuse not to do the census. It's important. You have heard. I say this to you. Help us to help you to help yourself. And this is the main way we can do it. These are quality of life issues that we're going to be dealing with, that we're going to have the funds for. So please count, be counted. Let's show people that South Fulton is counted. Thank you so much, Donna.
All right. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Willis.
Yes. And so if you don't get counted, you don't exist. And so, it's important that you get counted. Most people are saying they want more parks. Most people say they want more road pavements. Most people say they want better education, funding for education. Well, if we don't have the count correct, then we are going to be undercounted, we're going to be underfunded, and we're going to be underserved. Make sure that you respond to the census via mail, via phone, or online. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gumbs.
I think my colleagues covered it all. On our way to 80, let's get counted.
All right. Ms. Calhoun.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all again. I would simply say that as we look at ML King Boulevard, Corridor Street, all across this nation, we know that those streets and those boulevards don't look like they ought to look to honor that great man's name. And so I would simply say that if we want investment in our communities, then we've got to be counted. You heard the cases that have been made before us. And so it's up to us to be able to help us. So I think someone's going to give out the phone numbers. We've got the website address. We hold our own self-determination in our own hands. I do want to say, for those who are concerned about scams, that there is an email address. You can go to rumors, RUMORS, at census.gov. Again, rumors@census.gov. If you have any question about something you may have received, send a note to them, or either call the number that you're going to receive shortly and check it out. Just make sure, because we know that there are disinformation and misinformation campaigns out there. And so, I just want to make sure everyone feels safe and secure. There, of course, as was said earlier, are provisions in place, prison fines and everything up to $250,000 and 5 years in prison if there's anyone who works for the Census Bureau who mishandles information. So it is secure, it is safe, it's easy, and it is important. Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you so much. Ms. Matthews had to step away from our event tonight, but I wanted to get to Mr. Holland. Is there something else that you want to say?
Absolutely. Final thoughts. Just remember that the money follows the numbers and not necessarily the need. So it's very important to get those numbers up, to get them up in the city of South Fulton. And if you don't get counted, then don't complain.
Right. No excuses. Ms. Dove, final thoughts.
Absolutely. From my perspective, one of the things that my dad has always said, you either want to be at the table or on the menu. If you do not fill out the census, you will be on the menu and not at the table. So complete that census from 0 to 35 to 99, as long as you live it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We want to thank everybody for joining us for this City of South Fulton's Count to 80 virtual town hall meeting. There's a lot of information that we're going to be providing for you. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Calhoun for reminding us that you can go online. There are phone lines that are open from 7 a.m. until 2 a.m. the next day. So if you work certain shifts, you don't have to worry about that. That number is 844-330-2020. And there are, you can also go online and find out that there's a number for our Spanish-speaking audience too. So the main website is 2020census.gov. We want you to know that. And so be sure to pass along the information you've learned tonight. Get your friends and family to watch this forum online. Again, to get any questions answered, reach out to any of the panelists or the City of South Fulton with anything you might have. And in closing, we want to also mention, again, I want to mention that sweepstakes that the City of South Fulton has right now. If you fill out a census form between June 22nd and August 18th, once a week, they will do a drawing and somebody will win an Amazon Echo and Fire Stick combo or some Apple iPods. And all you have to do is go on 2020census.gov. You should be able to memorize that email address. We've said it so many times. And then send a screenshot of your census completion code to info@cityofsouthfultonga.gov. I think that wraps it up for our event tonight. I want to thank everybody with the City of South Fulton who is doing so much. I'm thrilled that I'm a part of this city. We just need people to know that there are more of us by filling out the census so that we can get everything we deserve in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Good night, everybody.
All right.